Okay, Walter, I'm going to put this video up on YouTube, but I'm making it primarily for you. Some parts of it might be of interest to somebody else, but it's concerning scrapers. Okay, basically that's what we're going to talk about this morning. And you asked me about the size of the scraping tool bit, I think. Anyway, I sent you an email back, but I'm not waiting for a reply. I'm going to go ahead and make this video. It's going to be similar to a video I made in the past, and that was actually not published on YouTube. But so I'm going to talk about my renditions of scrapers, okay? And I'm assuming that you'll probably be making your own scraper from bits and pieces around the shop. So I'll have something to say about that. Also, I'll talk about scrapers that I've used in the past and some of the other paraphernalia involved in scraping. I'm assuming that you're going to do some scraping on your shaper. That's my assumption, although it may not be correct. Anyway, so with that, we'll get started. I'm going to move the camera angle slightly down and zoom in, and we'll talk about your question first, about the size of these scraping bits and a few things associated with that. So with that, I'm going to change the angle of the camera down to the little workbench I got here set up, and we'll talk about those things. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to sort of be out of the picture here, but you can see the little workmate I have set up here that I use for a whole bunch of stuff around the shop. So anyway, okay, here's some of the things that, in general, that you might be interested in. Let's see here. Here's a tool bit that I normally use, and it's pretty well worn out. I've used most of the carbide up. Been sharpened many times on a diamond wheel. So I don't think I can show you the edge, because I don't think we can get that close up of a view of that. But it's a negative rake, and both sides are sharpened, so you can flip it over and use one side or the other. So anyway, that's it. It's a piece of, this is a tool bit for an Anderson scraper. Let's see, this portion back here I think is probably high-speed steel, and the portion up in front is a piece of carbide that they've brazed on there. And by looking at it, I can't really tell whether they've brazed it or they've silver soldered it on there or what. But basically that's it. So if you know what you're doing, I guess you can do that. I'm not an expert at it, so I can't give you any instructions on that. So with that said, this is the Anderson scraper that goes into, and this is a fairly new design. Well, I mean, I don't know how many years they've had this one, to be honest with you, but they had different designs of scrapers. But this actually works fairly good, and this is what I use almost all the time. So the tool bit that goes in here, the one that I have, is a little wide for some places, to get in some places, but basically this is the scraper that I always use. And let me see here, let me grab a tape measure. Okay, I'm back. Needless to say, I dropped the tape measure. It went under something that I liked and never got it back. Anyway, this scraper, from the end of it to the back of the handle, and it's got a nice handle on it, a nice round handle. It's about 20 inches long. And when you put the tool bit in here, and it's got an adjustment screw here, so you can adjust the length of the tool bit, which gives you a little bit of flex in this piece of high-speed steel here. But with where I have it set now, it's about 21 inches long, and that works for me. So everybody's different, so you know that it's whatever length that works for you. That's the deal. So anyway, this is a tool bit that was purchased from Anderson, or maybe the tool bit that came with this, I don't know. So I attempted to make some tool bits of my own. So all I did was take a piece of steel, regular mild steel. I had to mill out a little section here because the end of this is you can see the form, okay? So this tool bit goes in here like this, and I made it a little longer, and I brazed a piece of carbide on the end of it. And now this is a piece of carbide that's thicker and wider than the one that came from Anderson, okay? And this is what I was able to buy. This is quite inexpensive. A piece of carbide doesn't cost hardly anything, and it makes a tool bit. But and when you sharpen it, it works just fine. It's just bigger and bulkier, that's all. And like I say, it's thicker. So, but that's what was available, and that's what I purchased. I didn't have much luck at doing this. This one is intact. I have another one here that I made that also fits in here like this, and this one, you can see it had a piece of carbide brazed on the end of it, but it broke off. So my brazing job didn't hold very well for some reason. So like I say, I'm not an expert at it, but I'm not sure which is stronger. I think brazing is probably stronger than silver soldering, but if I'm wrong, then probably this should be silver soldered on here rather than brazed. But I brazed it. So that might give you some ideas. I don't know. So let's see. This is a brand new tool bit from Anderson right here. So I'm going to give you the sizes on that because I think that might be important. But I don't think that you can buy a small piece of carbide this thickness. Let me put it that way. So, and again, this is a piece of high-speed steel, I think, back here. I think they sell a high-speed steel bit without the carbide on it, and that probably works on cast iron, but you probably have to sharpen it quite a bit. The carbide, even the carbide, you have to sharpen, keep sharpening. So you know, I think to me the carbide's the only way to go. But let me see here what else I've got laid out here. I've got, drops these here. I've got another, I guess here's a piece of the high-speed steel, okay? This is probably very inexpensive. I purchased this from Anderson at one time, and it looks like, to me, it's exact duplicate of the one that's connected, that has the piece of carbide on the end of it. So I'm assuming this one's sharpened, so I must have sharpened this one at one time to give it a try. But and this would also work for a blank to go into Anderson scraper if I wanted to silver solder or braze a piece of carbide on the end of it. So that's that. This is another Anderson scraper that I have, and this one's been around for a long time. It's got the tool bit is the same configuration as the other one. It's a piece of steel of some sort with a piece of carbide brazed or silver soldered on the end of it, or welded somehow, however they attach it. It looks like brazing, but anyway, that one's held up quite well. I've used this for a number of years, and it's been no problem. So it's quite a bit smaller in size. The length of it overall is about 15.5 inches right there. And of course you can adjust the length of the tool bit here. So you can see how it works, pretty obvious. You know, this slides back and the tool bit loosens up in there. So that's how that works, and it works quite well. It's quite a nice design. And the width of this tool bit is about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, that's the width of that tool bit. It's about 3/4. The width, these aren't exact sizes, believe me. These things vary a little bit, so it doesn't really help much to measure with a micrometer. But this one is a little over an inch, between an inch and an inch and an eighth. That's the one I normally use. So that'll give you an idea. Let me see, the thickness of these tool bits, if you measure the carbide, let me turn on, I got a pair of calipers here. So that's right at 90 thousandths. That's right at 90 thousandths thick. And the, let's see, this one in this old scraper is right about 70 thousandths thick. So this is a smaller scraper. I mean, it gets into a little tighter spots, but I don't find much use for this. It works fine. It's a great scraper. But I use the larger one all the time. It's pretty much my go-to scraper for most everything. Well, let's see here what else we've got. What other paraphernalia? Like I say, the width of these things is about an inch and an eighth. Pretty close. That's the width. And again, the thickness of this is about 90 thousandths. Now, here's a scraper that I made one time, and it leaves a lot to be desired. It's just an old file, and I ran it across the grinder to make sure there's no, you can see where the teeth were, but there's no bite. It's perfectly smooth. So I cleaned up the teeth with the grinder, and I remember heating the file to cherry red and then letting it cool. So that enabled me to grind it and drill it and do whatever else I needed to do to it. So it's pretty much as it was. You can see what I've done at the end of it here. I drilled 2 holes in it for a couple set screws or a couple locking screws, and then I made a little retainer for it. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I can give you more information on that if this video doesn't suffice, but that gives you the idea. And then this is just a chunk of carbide in the end here. That's all that is. And you can buy a piece that size for, I don't know, $4 or $5. It's not expensive. And but the problem is with this is that, well, it does work fine. It's short. It's got very little flexibility to it, but it does work as a scraper. One problem I found is that the end down here is kind of bulky, so that part I don't like. I like the idea that you have this long, thin area at the end. So that's one problem with it. The other problem with this design is I don't know how I figured this out. Maybe I found somebody else that maybe made something like this. I don't remember now. But you have to. This one actually, I can see the back of it needs shimmed a little bit. So when it clamps down on this piece of carbide up here, there's a square fit between the locking piece and the piece of carbide. I can see that there's a little space in there, and it probably, I don't remember if this holds real well or not. I suspect it probably does, but you can see that, okay? And like I say, it's to me it's too bulky. Now if this piece of carbide stuck out here another inch or something, then it would probably be just fine, but it's pretty bulky as is. So, but this is a way you can make one. You know, you can make a scraper similar to this, and you can buy just a piece of carbide and clamp it. And there's another manufacturer, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a very common. If you look on the internet, you can figure it out. But there's a manufacturer that makes a similar clamping arrangement for their scraper. And it's very common. I wish I could think of the name of it right now. But a lot of people use that scraper, so you can look on the internet and figure that out. And maybe I'll email you the information. So that's that. So here's something I made that's a gauge for sharpening the end of the scraper. So it has different radiuses on it, and you could make this very easily. This is just a piece of probably 1/8 inch aluminum, and it's got a 1 inch square in the middle, because if you want to count what do I want to say? If you want to count dots or spaces, you can use this 1 inch square to do that. I think this is an idea from somebody else's store-bought gauge. But you can make this with your CNC mill in a few minutes. So pretty simple thing. And they're marked. The sizes are marked on here, 1 through 6. So that must be the radius, you know, size. So this must be, yeah, I don't know how it was. I don't remember. But anyway, there's that. That'll give you some idea. And then you can purchase quite easily some different non-drying type, you know, marking compound or bluing. This one, I don't use these, but because they're not water soluble, number one, and they're messy. This one's Dicam, and it's a high spot blue, and this one is it says non-drying Prussian blue made by Permatex. But I don't recommend these things. I keep them around here. I've used them in the past for something or another, but they will work for scraping. But what you need is this company here, what is it, Canode? They make these dyes, and they're water soluble, and they're much easier to clean up. And I have a blue one that probably come in red too, I think, but this is blue, which I use, and then I have a yellow one that I use for highlighting. So if you if you look on the internet, you can get information on scraping, and you can understand how these products are used. But these are the products I use. They've been sitting around here for a long time. They don't seem to dry out. So you can always add a little water to them if you need to. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some idea of what I have. And you can see this scraper. I don't know if you can see that. It's made by Anderson. And they probably still make this scraper, but you'd have to order from the U.S. and number one, that'd be the first problem. The next problem is that their scrapers are not cheap. So it's a simple thing, but they charge a little money for their scrapers. So that's why probably initially I tried to use a file and make one, you know, and that worked. It was okay. But after I bought this one, this is pretty much what I use all the time. So gives you some idea. And some people, you know, I know they just make the shaft out of a piece of steel. I remember seeing things on YouTube where people actually tell you how they made these things. So they just used a piece of steel. They had a way to make a handle, or you can buy these handles, by the way. So they're readily available you can buy them from Anderson, or you can buy them from other places. The diameter of this handle this works quite well. It's not hard on your hand. This is about, I'd say it's a little bit, maybe 1 7/8 or something. You know, a little bit, around 2 inches ball here. So that's good. And you can see, I don't know if you can see this one either, but this is made by Anderson. It's probably got a number on it or something. So Anderson's still around. They're still in business. I forget where they're located, somewhere in the U.S., back east or Middle West. So okay, I'll call off, and I'm going to put this video up on YouTube in case anybody else is interested in this information. But again, I have to tell you, I'm certainly not an expert on this at all, but I've done a fair amount of scraping though. So anyway, that gives you an idea. Hopefully you can figure out what you need to do to make a tool to do any scraping that you might want to do. Okay? I'll call off now. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Goodbye.